Talk about Christmas in July. First, we had the two massive declassified document dumps from Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. Those documents provided evidence that President Barack Obama and the national security apparatus were behind the entire Russiagate hoax. Well, earlier today, Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa just published this newly declassified document, and this document shows us that, yes, Hillary Clinton herself authorized this entire scam on the American people. But to make matters even worse, this newly declassified document wasn't even reviewed by the FBI, or at least they didn't take steps to either corroborate or debunk it. They just totally ignored it, shoved it under the rug. Well, here we are. We're going to go through this entire report together. For those of you who are unfamiliar, this is the annex of the Durham report. This is the part that they didn't declassify. Now we have access to it. So right at the top of this memo, they get into the sources and methodologies for this information. They're really transparent about where all of it came from. What's interesting, though, is that it involves then DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, as well as two individuals at the Open Society Foundations. Now, individual number one is a name you're going to want to remember because it's mentioned time and time again in this document, and that name is Leonard Bernardo. Now, something to take note of here is that the Open Society Foundations is actually funded by George Soros. Yeah, his fingerprints just somehow appear to be everywhere, wherever something fishy is going on. On top of that, this initial memo was actually in Russian, so it had to be translated to English. This was written in Russian because it was compiled by Russian intelligence. Yeah, they were tracking Debbie Wasserman Schultz and tracking her conversations, and obviously it was prepared for the intelligence community in Russia. And so the FBI got their hands on it, and that's why they declassified this. Right off the top, they basically confirm what we got from the previous declassified dumps, which is Barack Obama was behind manipulating a lot of these investigations. So information released to the media, the United States media, in the last few days about FBI investigating possible corruption relating to Department of State under leadership of Clinton, preferential treatment of donors of the Clinton Foundation caused a significant negative reaction inside of the party. So the Democrats were freaking out about this. They didn't want this going on because obviously it would make it even more difficult for Hillary Clinton to win the election. They were trying to avoid negative headlines. We really saw that last year, right, with Kamala Harris, where the media really rallied around her. And in fact, whenever you saw panelists on CNN and MSNBC talking, they would talk about, oh, the lessons we learned from 2016. So that's why they treated Kamala Harris with kid gloves. But here is where they point out Barack Obama. Obama has no intention to darken the final part of his presidency and legacy by the scandal surrounding the main contender from the Democrat Party. To solve the problem, the president put pressure on FBI Director James Comey through Attorney General Lynch, however, so far without concrete results. While that on its own would be shocking and alarming, we already got this, not that specific instance, but we got similar information from Tulsi Gabbard's declassified documents, because in those documents, we saw that Barack Obama was about to get his daily presidential briefing, and in that briefing it was going to say, oh, we have no evidence of Russian interference, we have no evidence of Russian hacking, but according to that previously declassified data dump, we know that Obama himself was the one who put pressure on the intelligence community to change their tune, to change their mind. So again, we're just seeing a pattern of behavior here. Again, it's a different circumstance, but Obama is definitely pressuring his intelligence community. You would think that the intelligence community would just be focused on the facts and just focused on the truth and not political maneuvering and political pressure. Well, on this second page, they write, in relation to the consensus reached among the Democratic Party leadership regarding the candidacy of Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama sanctioned the use of all administrative levers to remove possibly negative effects from the FBI investigation of cases related to the Clinton Foundation and the email correspondence in the State Department. So that right there, not just pressuring the top of the FBI, the top of the CIA, but using every tool within his purview to basically carry out that goal. If that's not interference in our own elections, if that's not interference in the intelligence community, in justice, I don't know what is. Well, This is something that's new to me. If you heard about this part before, let me know down in the comments below. But in 2016, I didn't hear about it, but apparently the Clintons had a plan to tie Donald Trump to Russian mafia. And then they claimed that that Russian mafia also had ties to the Italian mafia. Among other things, the Clinton staff, with support from special services, is preparing scandalous revelations of business relations between Trump and the Russian mafia. And they go through the specific groups here, and they even try to say, well, it's this huge, massive ring involved in prostitution and human trafficking. So I guess, maybe this was the earliest version of the Epstein trying to tie President Trump to just scandalous things where there is no evidence. But here is where things, to me, start to get really interesting, because what I really love is the dissemination of information and the role that the media plays in that, and whether or not government forces interfere in that moment, right? Well, this should get a lot of people's attention. During the first stage of the campaign, due to lack of direct evidence, it was decided to disseminate the necessary information through the FBI-affiliated attic-based technical structures that are involved in cybersecurity, in particular the CrowdStrike and ThreatConnect companies, from where the information would then be disseminated through leading U.S. publications. Okay, that is a lot to get through. So let's split this up into 2 points so it's more easily digestible. Point number one, remember in 2016 when Hillary Clinton's email server was hacked? They blamed it on Russia, they blamed it on WikiLeaks, yada, yada, yada. Like, blame was going back and forth. Now, you would think that the Democrat Party, the DNC emails were also hacked. It wasn't just Hillary Clinton's private email server, right? You would think that in the midst of all of that, you would want the FBI to get involved. You would want the government to figure out, hey, if a foreign entity is interfering, we need to gain access to your servers and your systems to find out where the vulnerabilities are, what information they got, how we can prevent this in the future. And it's not just about the Democrats, it's about the Republican Party as well. It's about national security, if we're being honest. But what did the Democrat Party do? Instead of going to the FBI, this raised a lot of eyebrows at the time. Instead of going to the FBI, they said, no, we're going to hire our own firm to investigate. We're going to hire CrowdStrike. And it was CrowdStrike that investigated these leaks. So in writing, we have this, right? That they were going to go through FBI-affiliated, attic-based, or in other words, like, it's not official, but it's within the tentacles, right? It's within the swamp. It's a swamp creature without being the body of the octopus, I guess, right? And so that on its own is really weird. On top of that, the last part here, that they would use CrowdStrike to basically gin up this narrative and then disseminate that narrative through leading U.S. publications. So basically, they're going to come up with information from something that's not an official government source and then push it out there as propaganda. Well, what are those leading U.S. publications? None of them are named. I think a lot of people would have guesses on what they are. Now, based on the DNI declassifications a few weeks ago from Tulsi Gabbard, we do know, mentioned by name specifically, are at least two, the Washington Post as well as BuzzFeed. Now, BuzzFeed, I wouldn't consider a leading U.S. publication, but among millennials, Gen Z, just younger internet users, it still carries a lot of weight. And then the Washington Post is obviously one of the three largest newspapers in the country, with the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. So basically, to sum up that entire paragraph, the 2 points, point number one, they had a strategy to use CrowdStrike to come up with their own narrative, and they did that without officially involving the FBI. And then point number two, they were going to then push out that narrative as propaganda using partners in the media. Well, as if things can't look even worse, the FBI actually was about to get involved. Remember the name we talked about earlier, Leonard Bernardo? Well, he wrote this email. The media analysis on the DNC hacking appears solid. Wait a minute. Before we continue. So we now know that they were pushing out through the media this analysis of the DNC hacking. It wasn't government analysis. It wasn't FBI analysis. It was from a third party, an attic-based company, And then they pushed it out through the media. Now they're admitting the media analysis on the DNC hacking appears solid, which is ridiculous. This is an important story because it would be the first time that we know of that a state, Russia, deliberately uses the infiltration and publication of data to interfere in the U.S. election. And again, going back to the two previous dumps from Tulsi Gabbard. By the way, if you missed videos, I did complete deep dives breaking down what exactly were in those documents. I read all 100, I think it was 114, 118 pages of the first one, and then 46 for the second. And so I really tried to dive deep into that. But based on those documents, we do know that the intelligence community and the intelligence community assessment had no evidence of infiltration and manipulation of our election. So that right there, I mean, first of all, it's just factually false. There was no evidence of that. And then the other part, obviously, was that they were getting their information from media analysis. But the most telling part here is this. Julie says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now, it is good for a post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire. Number one, they're talking about the post-convention bounce. So all they can think is about power. All they can think is about victory and winning at all costs. If you truly were hacked by a foreign state, a foreign entity, someone who you are claiming is an adversary, you shouldn't be thinking about polling. You shouldn't be thinking about the election. You should be thinking about national security. Because it is a national security threat. But all they could think about was, how is this going to make us look? How is this going to help us get more votes? That should be a telltale sign right there. Maybe it's not evidence of wrongdoing, but it could provide motive or insight into their motive. And then the second point here, later the FBI will put more oil into the fire. So is that, again, another smoking gun that they're colluding with the FBI to create this narrative? I mean, that is just alarming. It should scare, I think, every American, even if you're a Democrat and voted for Hillary Clinton. But to make matters worse, we know that Hillary Clinton herself was behind this, according to this email from Leonard Bernardo. He wrote, Hillary Rodham Clinton approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email scandal, that's my word, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. The point is making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue. So there in writing, we have it. This was all politics. This was all about power. They didn't care about national security. They didn't care about any of the stuff that they claimed to care about. But then this is why I went through, intentionally went through the history of CrowdStrike here. In absence of direct evidence, CrowdStrike and Threat Connect will supply the media, and GRU, will hopefully carry on to give more facts. So without direct evidence, without anything proving your point, you're gonna rely on CrowdStrike, which again you hired instead of the FBI to investigate your own email hacks. What if this doesn't stink of corruption? I don't know what does, to be honest. And quite frankly, it's the lack of transparency. The fact that we had to wait years to get the annex of the Durham report declassified, it speaks volumes. The lack of curiosity on part of our elected officials, the intelligence community, because I'm going to get to the FBI and the CIA's role in this as if they haven't played a large enough role already later on in the video. But that's why people no longer trust the government, no longer trust whatever narrative is being put out there. That's what leads people to conspiracy theories. Now, I'm not saying that this right here is a conspiracy theory, but there are other ones out there. But with all this context, it makes sense that even after she lost, Hillary Clinton was pushing Russia, Russia, Russia everywhere she went. She really was leading the cavalry, and that's why people like Adam Schiff and the entire media apparatus echoed her lines.
I think that there is a lot to investigate. And I'm personally very grateful that somebody of the stature of Robert Mueller would be there conducting this investigation. He's a totally straight arrow guy. I mean, if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. And I really believe that he will be honest and transparent and tell us whatever it is he finds. But as I say in the book, and I try to explain what bothers me, there's just too many connections to be called just coincidences. There just are. And, you know, some of it is financial entanglements, and some of it is hunting for, you know, negative information about me, and some of it is calling, you know, people and trying to hide the connections and the meetings and the calls and all of that. All of that has gone on. Now, there's a lot of smoke, and whether or not there's fire, we need to figure it out. But here is what's important. Put the investigation into Trump, his associates, and everybody else to one side. There is no denying that the Russians interfered in the election.
Right.
Whether or not they had willing or unwitting help from the Trump team, they interfered, and they did so to help him and hurt me, and they did so to destabilize our democracy, and they have not stopped.
I wanted to play that specific clip because I honestly believe, assuming that investigations on this move forward and assuming that the DOJ actually takes action, and hey, as a non-medical professional, I would say don't hold your breath for anything else beyond these declassifications to happen. Just for your own health and safety, don't hold your breath. But I think you can use her own words against her in this exact situation. There is smoke. And we do know some things for a fact, thanks to the things written down via email. But that all raises the question, why are we just now finding out about this? Well, according to this newly declassified annex, CIA prepared a written assessment of the authenticity and veracity of the above referenced intelligence. The CIA stated that it did not assess that the above redacted memoranda or redacted hacked U.S. communications to be the product of Russian fabrications. Wouldn't you want to assess all of this? Like, to me, that's question number one. But it gets even worse. The FBI. Thus, the record reflects that the FBI was fully alerted to the possibility that at least some of the information it was receiving about the Trump campaign might have its origin either with the Clinton campaign or its supporters, or alternatively, was the product of Russian disinformation. Despite this awareness, the FBI appears to have dismissed the T1 information as not credible without any investigative steps actually having been taken to either corroborate or disprove the allegation. So both the CIA and the FBI apparently didn't care to authenticate this. And so we don't know whether or not this is legitimate information. Like, obviously it exists, but can we trust it? But they didn't even debunk it either, so it's just out there. Now, the fact that they didn't look at it is going to make a lot of people, including myself, say, well, I think there's something here. It reeks of a cover-up. It reeks of you're trying to protect people in power. You're trying to protect your own buddies. And if that's not what you're doing, then just be transparent. Again, it's the lack of transparency that leads people to draw their own conclusions. Now, on top of all of that, it is possible, because of the documents that Tulsi Gabbard already put out, where we know that Barack Obama put pressure on the intelligence community to change their narrative on Russia interference. I mean, was he behind this? Was he the reason that the FBI and the CIA didn't authenticate this or debunk it? Just asking. Now, there is even more news that is even worse for Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. But first, I would like to acknowledge Ali Severino and Relena2335 as the members of this video's Governors Club. Again, these are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. I am so glad that you enjoy. Well, it was Chuck Grassley who published this newly declassified document, and Chuck Grassley just revealed that there is a secret thumb drive that was just found, and he wants information on it. So he tweeted, thumb drives containing unreviewed information on Clinton email scandal and mishandling of highly classified info have been sitting at an FBI offshoot office since 2018. I sent a letter with House Intel Chair Crawford asking Director Patel to review materials and report back ASAP. For those of you unfamiliar, there are character limits on X, especially if you don't pay for the premium accounts, and so that's why a lot of public officials and even official accounts will have weird spacing or abbreviations. It's not because of unprofessionalism or anything like that. It's just because of the character count limits. Well, on top of the thumbnail, there's actually also burn bags that were just found. So burn bags are when they have like highly sensitive classified information and they no longer need it and they need to destroy evidence or destroy those papers, they put them in burn bags and then, you guessed it, they throw it in a furnace, basically destroying the evidence. Well, according to Fox News, Kash Patel found thousands of sensitive Trump-Russia probe documents inside burn bags in a secret room at the FBI. Now, obviously, this is huge news, but I think that raises more questions than it gives us any answers. How did those bags get there? Obviously, what's in the bags? How did no one find the bags over all of these years? Were these bags there all of this time? Were they put there? Is it mis and disinformation to lead us onto like a false trail, a false scent? There's a lot that I think we need to keep our ears and antennas attuned for. President Trump was actually asked about this yesterday.
Kash Patel reportedly found burn bags of Russiagate materials, and we'd love to get your thoughts on that.
He said what?
Burn bags of Russiagate materials
I
that
don't
the
know
FBI
that.
supposedly found.
I don't know that. I don't know what you mean by that statement. Say
Bags full of Russiagate
a
documents.
burn bag. I thought you said appointed a man named Burn Bag. Go ahead. You got to speak up.
Thousands of documents in these bags, supposedly burn bags at the FBI in a secret room.
Well, I want everything to be shown. You know, as long as it's fair and reasonable, I think it will be shown and it should be shown. And I think he feels that way, and I think Pam feels that way. But it's got to be, it's got to be stuff that really doesn't hurt people unfairly, because you have so many people involved. And if they can do that in a fair way, I think it's great. I think it's really great. The whole thing is a scam. It's a scam set up by the Democrats, and they love talking about it. But I would like to see people exposed that might be bad.
As always, though, everything in this video is just my analysis and commentary. That's what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So what stood out to you from these revelations? Like, what do you think is the either like most shocking thing that you found out, or you think is the largest piece of evidence or smoking gun that could add to, unraveling this conspiracy? I think for me, it was the statement that the FBI will pour more oil on the situation later on. That just, to me, tells me that there was a plan, there was a strategy, and they were going by some playbook. I think that was very alarming. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.